Welcome. This is the July 22nd Jails call. Just Oliver, Jamie, and me. Michael can't make it today. So we have a few topics I prepared. If any of you has additional topics, feel free to add them to the list. So status update from me. The Kassiber tool now has a FreeBSD port to go with it. It's basically a JExec which runs a command from the host through file descriptor sorcery. Then welcome, Daniel.
Hey, how's it
Jamie
going?
passed my executable jail.conf patch in the code review, but it still lacks a man page update. So that still has to be written before it should be committed. And then we have this open problem for FreeBSD 15. How do you safely install a package-based jail that is untrusted by the host? So by untrusted, I mean there could be symlinks or other files in there which the host does not trust and should not be evaluated in the host's context. And for example, packages could contain malicious pre-install, post-install hooks and so on in the jail, and if those get executed in the trust me bro root dear mode, that would be game over. So we must not invoke the package manager like that on an untrusted jail. And we can't follow through any symlinks without at least change root. Okay, now there are different ways how to get the minimum required set of files into the jail because you cannot install the userland without at least a user database so that package fetch can drop privileges. And if you want to fetch it encrypted over the network, you need the repository signing key. And if it's via HTTPS, you need the server certificate. You have to validate the server certificate against the root CA list. The annoying thing is both the user database and the root CA list have to be indexed. So how do you run the indexing step? And I've come up with two potential solutions to that. One is to create a trusted, safe, temporary working directory, assemble the files in there on the host, and then do a tar pipe tar, where the second tar is change rooted to the jail root directory, so that you effectively use change root to defend against symlinks. And you solve the problem of the running untrusted commands by running the host's trusted version of the command. Not ideal, in my opinion. The other way to do it would be to use something like Kassiber, where you can inject commands like mkdir, dd, or the mkdb command to index the master.parseid into two read-only database files and traditional password file. My question in regard to that is, does that mean Kassiber functionality should be merged into JExec? Or is there a better solution? That's the update from my side.
Interesting. So which one of those methods would you prefer if it were up to you? Or just have the ability to
So
do either?
my preferred one would be to have a new subcommand in the package manager to do a safe bootstrap directly within PKG without any files needed, so that it would pre-initialize the DNS resolver, pre-open the directory for the or all the root CA is, and so on, and the code signing key from the host. Maybe especially with the option to basically give a file or directory argument as needed, so that it would be one package, I don't know, install userland or something, or bootstrap userland.
Mhm.
But that's a larger feature request against PKG. Um, Whereas these kind of solutions I came up with wouldn't require dealing with a new subcommand in the package manager because the clock for 15 is ticking. So my
Right.
preferred solution would be to get the Kassiber functionality into base, either through the command, just importing it as is. I'm more than willing to make it available under a suitable license. Right now it's too close BSD, or to merge that feature into JXEC so that you can script around it with just in-base tools.
I need to take a look at Kassiber's Git
The,
page.
if you open the document, I put it in and link to it, or I
Yeah,
could
I
just
see it.
open it for you.
I got it. No, it's good. Well, actually, yeah, why not?
Um, so if you look at the code or basically the usage message, you can see you invoke it like this. So Kassiber, either you ask for help or you don't have to deal with those normally. You just ask it to please, in a jail or change root or both, run a command with the following arguments. It will then open the runtime loader. You can override where it finds the runtime loader. Then ask the runtime loader to please tell Kassiber which libraries this command needs. It then opens all of them and runs the runtime loader in direct mode with the file descriptors to the executable and the library is as needed after attaching itself to a jail or change root or both.
Not bad.
So if we look at this code here for a moment, it's not that much code, it's pure net lines. And so I'm passing the arguments here. I get back my arguments. Here, to make life easier, I defined my own little vector of integers and vector of strings class because I needed those in arrays. So here is the definition of a heap only vector of strings and integers. Yes, I just duplicated the code because yes. And whenever the vector crosses a power of 2, it doubles itself to the next power of 2. So it's a fairly simple data structure here. It really just whenever you can only append to it, and when you append, if it's not a power of 2, it knows that there's enough memory pre-allocated. The first time it allocates just one element, and then every time it checks, okay, is it not a power of 2? If it is a power of 2, it doubles the size. So yeah, symptomatically you only do one doubling per element. So is there anything interesting here? Yeah, maybe. So Here's the way it invokes the runtime loader. It asks it to please trace all loaded objects and use just the format of path and new line per. So, okay, it doesn't handle the case that you have a new line in a library path. In that case, you get what you deserve for having a
Right.
new line in a library path.
You should perhaps insert a double minors argument between those options and the bit where you copy argv.
Hmm?
Just occurs to me looking at that code that you should perhaps put
No, I don't, because the command is never executed here. And yeah, I could put one in here. Yeah, but it's not really needed, I think, because this one is already direct, but yeah, I guess it could be confusing. So yeah, maybe I should put it in. I have to look up the exact code in the runtime loader to know if it's needed or not, or if it's even allowed, more precisely. It may be that the runtime loader doesn't call full featured get opt.
I've got the man page in front of me and it does.
Yeah, okay, if it does get opt, then it should be there. So yeah, thanks for the comment. Jamie, do you have any strong opinions that this kind of functionality would make sense in base? And if it should be its
No,
own
not.
command or should be merged into the existing JExec command?
It sounds like a good idea, but I would want to, not for 15 at least, because I'd want to really look over the implications of it. It's
It
the kind of thing that I feel the security team would be interested in.
well, it doesn't do anything you can't do already from user space. It's
It's not a matter of what you can't do, but making sure that what is normally done with JExec still goes.
mhm. It would definitely be a new flag. So the normal code path and the new code path. So you think if it makes it into 15, it should definitely stay its own command for 15.
Okay. I missed the significance of the new flag, so that could actually make it work.
So it's not supposed to replace JExec and always work like this, but add a new flag and then you get this functionality.
Okay.
I don't know, -I for inject or whatever.
Always the same thing bumping against the limits of the alphabet.
Oh, we're not really with JExec. It only takes 4 arguments so far. So if you look at it, it has a -L for cleaning to a login environment, working directory, and then to look up the user either on the host or in the jail. So yeah, we have most of the alphabet available.
Okay.
And the idea would be that a new command exec dash a new flag to it. I would prefer something like -I for inject. And then it opens the command on the host, brings it into the jail, and runs it there. With the robot, you can run a dynamically linked executable without ever installing it, because that needed to break the chicken and egg deadlock, where, oh, I need to index the user database inside the jail so that the package manager can do a username lookup on nobody so that it can drop privileges during package fetch.
I must admit, I have hit sort of chicken and egg problems with empty jails like that. And can
Yeah.
see.
Hmm? At least that's the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's got potential to be added.
Would you be willing to review that if I write start the review for it?
Yes.
Okay. That's it from my side, unless you're interested in a short little demo on how to use a fetched your own local repository to speed up package installation for package-based jails. So, Oliver, Daniel, Jamie, you wanted to be bugged about jail descriptors?
Yes, I have. I've not actually coded anything new, but I think I have mentally at least worked around the roadblock of not being able to open up a new descriptor for a child jail in KQ.
Oh, so what's the design application here? So you create
The
a
problem is
child
that,
jail?
yeah, so if KQ notifies you that there's a child jail, the
Mhm.
question is, how does KQ give you that child jail? Because KQ doesn't operate at the process level, so it cannot open a descriptor.
Mhm.
So,
You need a notification that there is a new jail, and you need a system call if you get the notification that there is a new one to kind of open an outstanding child jail on this descriptor.
right. So what I'm thinking is right now I've got it so you can pass a descriptor to jail get and say get the jail that's in this descriptor. I can
But
and
that doesn't really
that's good
break the
for
cycle.
hmm?
You would have to give the descriptor of the parent for the child jail and then say,
What
I want basically the new unconsumed child on this descriptor.
right. Um, the thing is, yeah, even the descriptor of the parent jail,
Uh-huh.
it's a I don't know if I want to put attach the children to that because it's not the fact that you've got the jail, it's the fact that you're listening to KQ on the jail that's the essential thing. So what I'm thinking is allow jail get to also take a KQ descriptor instead of the jail descriptor, and the KQ descriptor itself is what keeps track of child jails that it is announced the existence of.
So in 15, we have this new feature for extended attributes, where extended attributes in a file can be treated as a single level directory. Apparently, that's how it was implemented in Solaris.
Okay.
So that you have a special open flag where you do an open add on a normal file with this flag, and then it works as if it's a directory file descriptor, and then you have the namespace of extended attributes as a single level of directory entries. So I think in theory you could do something like this, but it would be a bit more code
Yeah,
um,
that does
to
seem
do
that
that
way.
on the descriptor. alternatively, you could just have an ioctyl to. So yeah, you have a queue on the just on S list or whatever on the description for the jail, because to have a descriptor, you have to have a description, right?
Hmm.
And in the description, you could have this with the assumption that, okay, you must, oh, wait, how do you, is there a way to kind of reopen this description so that you get a new description? So maybe I should ask this differently. Do all file descriptors to a jail in your design share the same jail description, or can you have multiple jail descriptions to the same jail?
You can have multiple descriptors to the same jail.
Descriptors
You
or
can-
descriptions?
Okay, I'm not sure in this context what a description is.
It's the thing you get by calling on a file open, where stuff like the file position and log are stored. The file descriptor is the thing you keep in the file descriptor table of a process. So that it's a array of pointers to file descriptions.
Okay, yeah, different description in that you can get a jail descriptor from, say, jail get, and it will create a new one there. It won't just copy and duplicate an existing descriptor.
Okay, it's a way
And those
to,
descriptors then can be in different states.
because then the description could be the point where you track the new events, basically.
Hmm.
So that if you have your child
And that's
jail get
true.
created and the filter for it to get notified with the right filter flag or whatever, I want to learn about new child jails. Then on the description, you have a queue of unconsumed outstanding notifications. You enqueue it with each description for the jail. Or you just give them an ordering, and then you could have some external linkage, maybe sort them by uptime or a non-overflowing counter, then you could store that. The advantage of doing it like that is that you don't have to allocate memory to for each description. Because if you have a just an ordering, and that could be as simple as a 64-bit or longer counter with a kind of event counter, then and you keep them in a sorted list of events by the list, you only need them once, and then you can skip ahead in that list over events which are not relevant to you as with jail description. The jail description checks basically, oh, is there a new event for this jail? And yeah.
Yeah, that's a completely different way than I've gone about it, but
You would have to track the kind of read position so that you can garbage collect old events when all descriptions have consumed it.
right.
And if you want to bound the memory consumption of creation and destruction, and so on, you would have to implement some kind of merging so the jail gets destroyed. You would have to remove it from the event list so that you don't get a notification if it gets created and destroyed, or at least not more than once.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have a potentially unbounded queue size if someone in a loop creates and destroys a jail. But if you do this interaction through the counter, you can avoid memory allocations, but the easier way is to just have a structure and then make each description track that. But that would mean that you have a new allocation which can fail for each subscriber. I guess you could hang it off the filter, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would be nice is with hanging it off the filters, but each filter has its own copy of that event,
Yeah.
and you could just index them in some, I don't know, red black tree if you expect there to be that many. So that you index them by the jail ID or something. And then you would get them sorted by jail ID, which normally, yeah, out of order delivery is something you have to live with because, yeah, there is no guarantee that you get in order delivery. That's it, unless someone gives it to you. So if you have that, you could mess with that and just, yeah, index them by, I don't know, event type and jail ID, right? And then you would have the uniqueness of a red black tree, make it so that if you have both a create and a destroy event for the jail, and the ordering would be implemented by the tree, because let's say the destroy operation is always before the create, or you just sort them maybe relative to each other by timestamp. Yeah, that would work, like kind of last time you saw this event in host uptime. Just the fast, strongly monotonic, so that you even, and then the consumer gets the event in whatever order they get it. So the last thing you did is create, destroy, you get the last by type and time. Time would take precedence. So if you last destroyed a jail and then created it again, you would at least get a notification that the jail has been destroyed and created in order. That would make it easier on the consumer.
Yeah, I've already got that just by adding it into the list of outstanding events that are there.
Yeah.
I mean, things that you add to KQ as they come are already naturally ordered by time.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take any extra work for that. The only sticking point was just getting the file descriptor to them.
Yeah. You have to have a notification to deliver in the expectation that the consumer, if they care about that event, will consume it by invoking a system call to get that, be that a jail get or whatever.
Yeah.
Because you cannot asynchronously just inject a file descriptor in a process without messing it up. What if that process just cleared, I don't know, closed file descriptor 0 in the expectation that if it no does a dub, right?
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly you standard in as a file descriptor of the wrong type, total clusterfuck. So accepting the file descriptor has to work similar to calling accept on a socket.
No, the only time you get a jail descriptor, though, is when you explicitly ask for one.
Yes, exactly. You get the notification and then you have to ask for it to consume that,
Yeah.
to clear that. Otherwise, you're in a busy spin loop.
Yep.
And that's fine because it's just an application bug that wouldn't be supported, right? So if you subscribe to that notification, unless you keep the filter disabled. Yeah. What is a sticking point with putting it in a queue? What happens if I 1,000,000 times or 10 million times or 100 million times destroy and create the same jail as a child? How would your filter design handle that? Would I get the full event stream buffered in wired kernel memory? In the worst case?
I don't know. It would be however KQ already handles if you create and destroy a process 1,000,000 times, or whatever else that can be watched in KQ. That's a KQ issue. It's not my issue.
I haven't looked how to implement the KQ yet. Did you have more time to look at the issue of passing setuid executables over Unix sockets between jails?
I have not seen any difference on that since last we talked, so I haven't done anything else with it. I still am just not convinced that anything that doesn't lead to a jailbreak is an issue here.
Yeah, it's a local privilege escalation between jails.
Yeah.
And to me, as a user, that is an issue. Because right
To
now,
me, it's a matter if you give someone a hammer, things will break. So don't give them the hammer. Yeah.
okay, but that effectively means you must not share any nullFS between jails. You cannot use Unix sockets at all to communicate, at least not bound ones between jails. Effectively, the implication of what you're saying is Unix sockets are not usable between jails.
Well, not unless you accept that these things can happen. I mean, here we are talking about jail descriptors, and process descriptors already exist. They too are things that not only can be passed like between Unix sockets, but part of their
Totally
use
fine.
case is the design of that. And once again, those are privilege escalators.
No, not really.
They are things that they make it so you can do a thing that you couldn't otherwise do. Certainly with the jail descriptor, lets you manage the
Jail
jail.
descriptor maybe, but the process descriptor is, I see it less as a way to, okay, in the context of Capsicum, it allows you to still do things within Capsicum which you would normally do through a global namespace, that is the process descriptor namespace. Most importantly, send signals and rate by PID. They can also be used to allow an otherwise unprivileged process to use pdkill to send signals to that process. And you can subscribe to its fate that's undocumented effectively, but I looked at the code and played around with it and found out that you can get basically the 32-bit status as through the filter flags value, so that you can then pass that to an integer and apply the usual stuff to get the exit code signal, and that's about it. What you get. So the normal integer value return that you get from wait, so that you know when the process died. And yeah, the zombie will stay around until that file descriptor is closed, and you will not get a sick child for a process created with PD4. And so, yeah, in theory, okay, you could probably send the process descriptor across a jail, and then you could send a signal to a process in another jail. That could be useful for stuff. I don't know if it's some kind of cron job like process and you send it a sick alarm to wake up. do its work and it does it in a loop or something. Heck, that could be a useful communication primitive, but it's not that much of an attack vector because the sender explicitly sent it over, and it, by having it, had the ability to do it. And what it grants is the ability to manipulate something under the control of the sender. The problem with passing an executable with a set UID bit is that you get to take something you have in the sending jail and then turn that into a kind of stronger capability, which now works in both jails. So it breaks the monotonicity of the capability mechanism. Because if I'm supposed to be this user in the sending jail, but I can delegate my user into the receiving jail. You could argue that's what your being a user with a writable directory with on a normal file system with setuid enabled is, but that's the default configuration. So yeah, it's kind of in my opinion, a malicious interpretation of what it means.
Well, yeah, that's true, because the idea of who a
So
user
if I
is.
send you a process descriptor, I grant you the ability to so kind of watch, supervise this process and send it signals. And I can even use cap rights in it to limit your ability. So I can take away your ability to send signals so that you can only wait for it, right? So I have the control as the sender. And it's something I, as the sender, had authority to grant you. But with sending the setuid binary over, I kind of, the model is broken because I kind of apply my ambient authority as the sender in my jail into the other jail. So if I'm root as the sender, I shouldn't have root just by being able to establish a Unix socket connection with an unprivileged receiver. I shouldn't, being root in one jail shouldn't imply being able to grant root in an unrelated jail.
Okay.
That's especially because we don't have user namespaces like Linux does, but just assume that users in jails are separate from each other, right? We do not have
Yeah, I would like
root
to
in
have
this
separate
jail,
user
root in that
namespaces.
jail. It's all just user ID 0 plus prison pointer this.
Yeah.
So you can't even give the jails separate root users and then say, yeah, but you've only granted the other jails root user ID, and that is not a root user ID here, so you don't gain any special privileges. So as long
Yeah.
as that jail is super user enabled, but it has to be to run any rc.d services, because otherwise SU breaks and basically everything runs through SU to set locking class and so on. So yeah, if you disable super user for the jail, it's just broken. I guess with the Mac underscore mdo kernel module or Mac underscore do, whatever its exact name is, you could load a policy that some non-root user ID in that is allowed to use set creds, right? So maybe that would make SU work. may even be a bypass to kind of undo the no super user by overwriting it with the mandatory access control policy. But as long as we don't have a file system to go along as a pseudo file system like the old UMAP file system, which got removed when the virtual file system moved out of the giant lock, right? In I think 7. UMAP FS was removed, and since then we no longer have a pseudo file system for UID GID remapping. Though according to Rick, the functionality still exists in the kernel and some firearm for NFS, but it's no longer exposed as a file system and potentially bit rotted for all but the subset used by NFS. So right now, if you wanted to have unique usernames per jail, you would have to change owner and group on every file in that jail, which means that you effectively can't do thin provision jails. And also you would have to fight the package manager for user and group IDs. So you would have to patch every package to you for every jail if it has a user ID.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not really possible right now to pretend we can just have unique user IDs for every user plus jail combination.
No, that is a good long-term goal to have separations in the UID space, but that's a big project, yeah.
I am not sure it's that not big of a project. If we, how big is the user ID type? 32 bits, right? So the potentially easiest way I can imagine, unless that runs afoul of some POSIX regulation or something, would be to double its size again and then embed the jail ID in the user ID, in the upper half, kind of. Then you would, and you could decide if you want to do a equality comparison on basically everything or just the upper half or both or the lower half, and then yeah. So you would normally display it in just the 32 bits, but you have the full information. So that you could tell them apart easily. Like this is this jail ID plus user ID.
Yeah, in a few places where you would want to have past that, yeah.
Yeah, and
even not just as a 64-bit number, but I mean, you could just do it as just the two numbers.
Yep.
Keep it as a tuple.
But by extending it and putting it in a single number, I think the change is a lot smaller. Because everything which does an exact match does an exact match by default, and you can special case the few cases where you don't want an exact match.
Yeah, well, this is delving into some new stuff, so haven't looked enough to see what the implications would be on that. I mean, I haven't looked at all to see.
Neither have I. It's just something I kind of got curious about and tried to look into.
think with Podman on Linux, you sort of allocate sub-UIDs, and it also enables you to allow unprivileged users to run containers because you allocate
So
these
unprivileged namespaces are just the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to kernel exploits in Linux. So we should be careful how we do that. In my opinion, because you want some kind of non-trivial policy, it would make more sense to have a trusted daemon make the jail available to you. So that you have, similar to a sudo file, you have a jail configuration, and then which operation is which user or group allowed to do on this jail, like so that you can ask for this jail to be started or stopped, or maybe modified. And if we had descriptors, it could send you back a jail descriptor.
That's actually one of the differences between Docker and Podman is that Docker does use a daemon where Podman doesn't.
I know, but in this case, it's not that the daemon is there for. The daemon is just needed because you need the privilege. You could also have a setuid binary, which kind of a binary which runs a setuid binary as a child, and then the setuid child would do something so that you kind of spawn the privileged process as a setuid binary. Would be a little bit harder to make secure, but sure, you could just reuse code from do as or sudo to kind of run this through sudo or whatever mechanism you use, or mdo. And when you run this helper, which does run as root, it is allowed to do this, and then it sends you back through a socket pair the descriptors you need to do whatever you want. I guess you could kind of work around the current limitations by having this give you a connection to the itself and then do the jail start stop modify as a proxy. This you could already write today, just in user space. And as a trusted security binary, it would be responsible for policy enforcement. Does that make any sense, Jamie, or am I off the deep end?
You're out of my depth, at least.
So the use case Dave brought up is he wants to run a CI/CD pipeline. He wants to start jails, but he doesn't want to run his build orchestration tool as root. But it needs to be able to spawn new jails.
Yeah.
So right now you have to run something as root to do a jail set with create flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you wrote your own right now a shell script and then invoked it through sudo, right? It could allow you to give it certain arguments, but it runs that in the cleaned up environment provided by sudo. So that you get a controlled escalation instead of just arbitrary. But right now you would kind of have to handle this. You get this child, it basically is the jail, and it runs to completion, and then you get an exit status. And while it runs, you get standard out and error. So you can already cobble it together. But yeah, we do not have unprivileged jail create, modify, destroy system call.
Right.
There are no user jails.
No, and those they might be a good project for 16.
Yeah. Okay, so I just added something to my to-do list, which is to port Kassiber into a patch for JExec. Do we have any other topics? Anything from you, Jamie?
No.
I think we should end it here. It's almost an hour. So anyone crazy enough to listen, like and subscribe.
All right, goodbye.